we're going to go down to the nation's capital and maybe not pay our respects and take command of Washington and talk about the Washington Commanders. Is that really a respectable name? Is this really a name worth commanding in Washington? Because for Washington, they certainly commanded something heading into 2022. Just for the wrong reasons. Daniel Snyder, the owner, still faced a lot of scrutiny and intensity to sell the team amid various issues. Too much to discuss in detail here. And the Commanders were stupid enough to trade for a new commander in Carson Wentz, the quarterback from Indianapolis, fresh off losing to the all-elite Jacksonville Jaguars in Week 18. Who, mind you, remember, in that 2021 season finale, the Clown Squars were on their fan base, were dressed up as clowns at the time. So, big oof. And it was even more stupid because they had a decent, but not long-term, option in Taylor Heinicke already, who the offense trusted already. And not only that, they ended up drafting North Carolina quarterback Sam Howell in the later rounds of the draft. It's like, so why waste your second and third round picks, a lot of them, mind you, on Carson Wentz? Only taking command is Washington. So the newly named Washington Commanders were going into 2022 with a new starting quarterback, thinking they could take command on the NFC East with that new kind of offense after a disappointing 2021. And of course, what they failed to realize, what actually would end up happening. Sure, they got a good 2-game start out of Carson Wentz, but he then proceeded to shit the bed. Because of the problems that plagued him in 2021 when he was with the Colts. He wasn't aggressive enough, or maybe he was too aggressive enough, and he threw a lot of turnovers. He couldn't recognize defenses like he used to do back in his MVP year. So for the Commanders, it was not great. It was really bad for them. It was really bad for them. So when Wentz got hurt in Week 6 with a finger injury, and rather than go with Sam Howell, they commanded back to Taylor Heinicke, who was all right. They already knew what they had in him, but it was just like, man, what are we doing here? So at least with Heinicke, though, they wound up winning 6 of their 7 next 6 to 7 games mid-season because of the defensive line and receivers Terry McLaurin, Jahan Dotson. They played pretty good, and Taylor Heinicke, managed to limit any bad plays. So at least that was something. But when you get to mid-December, though, that's when their luck ran out. December really killed Washington. They squandered a lot of winnable games, especially both games against the New York Giants. They tied them, and then when they came back from the bye week, in a big primetime spot, mind you, they no-showed on offense against New York. In a winnable game, mind you. And then they just didn't show up. And then, of course, the next week on Christmas Eve, they get rocked by the 49ers, a game in which Ron Rivera suddenly just had enough with Heinicke. And instead of going with Sam Howell again, he went back to Carson Wentz to save what hopes of commanding a wildcard spot. And Carson Wentz didn't thread the needle per usual. And then the next week, guess what happened? The skid marks, yes, the Cleveland Browns, a.k.a. the skid marks, commanded that Carson Wentz throw 3 interceptions, 3 turnovers, so that Washington gets eliminated from playoff contention. And that's exactly what happened. Carson Wentz had a pretty terrible performance against the Cleveland skid marks that Washington was eliminated from playoff contention. And of course, Ron Rivera realized or failed to realize that his team could be eliminated that week. So what does he do? He now starts Sam Howell like a wolf. Oh! For the season finale. So at least in the season finale, though, if you're looking for a positive, they actually managed to blow the brakes off of the Dallas Cowboys and shatter a little bit of their confidence going into their wildcard game against the Tampa Bay Bucks. So that's at least something. They managed to upset two of their NFC East playoff contenders in the Eagles, handing them their first loss. And they blew out the Cowboys in the season finale. So, I mean, if you're the Commanders, I mean, you just have a little bit of positives. And, you know, you also got some pretty good production out of the likes of rookies Brian Robinson Jr., who was had an unfortunate incident preseason, and Jahan Johnson, the rookie receiver. And, of course, veterans like Terry McLaurin on offense, and pass rushers Jonathan Allen and Deron Payne also had pretty good seasons and made the Pro Bowl. But overall, though, the team went 8-1, but it's not a good spot for them. They're in a pretty tight predicament to grab a solid starting quarterback in either the free agency or the draft. Because unless they have the assets to trade up in the draft, they just want too much. They want too many games to put themselves in the position to do successful long term or just do bad in the long run. Because when you look at their offseason plan, yeah, they have about a little bit of money to spend, $16 million, but it's just like, damn, you won too many games. It's like, how are you going to get a starting caliber quarterback? How are you going to inspire confidence in this team? But then you remember, it's a pretty bad run organization. So here you are, hitting 16th in the draft. It's like, what do you do from here? Obviously, when you look at some of your key free agents, like Taylor Heinicke, John Bostic, Tyler Larson, Trey Turner, it's like, who do you keep? What do you need to do here? So what the Commanders should be doing is looking at the quarterback position. For as hard as it may be to do, you have to decide where you're going to attack that quarterback position, because if you attack it in free agency, that's pretty much the most money it's going to be going towards. So at the same time, though, if you do it that way, it's like, what do you do with Sam Howell? Like, you don't really know much about him. And same thing with the draft. Like, do you go trade up to get your potential long-term starting quarterback? But then it's like, what do you do with Sam Howell? You don't really know much about him. Just saying. And, you know, it'd be nice for the Commanders to invest in the cornerback position at both spots, because, you know, they had a lot of difficulty defending the pass in the last several years. So after getting the quarterback, they should go out and attack the defense, because, well, they didn't do all that great in pass coverage. You know, getting some stopping some catches from happening or getting some turnovers. And then the offensive line could do some work too. The interior protection was non-existent half of the time. So Washington should at least invest in getting a cheap but reliable guard in free agency and drafting a good one. So whatever that name is, and we'll be dead set on for however long it be, Washington is going to be commanding anything until they settle on a long-term starting quarterback. It's not going to be Taylor Heinicke. It's not going to be Carson Wentz. Who knows if it's going to be Sam howling like a wolf. Oh! So, whether that's Sam howling like a wolf, or they go all in and trade for someone like Lamar Jackson, or trade up into the top 10 of the draft and getting a top quarterback prospect, the Commanders, for as incompetent of an organization they are, they have to wake up and take command of this offseason and focus on finding someone good under center. Because if they don't, they're not going to be commanding anything for not just this year in 2023, but beyond. They're going to be the basement dwellers of that NFC East division.